Hey guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. If you are a subscriber or if you've watched any of my videos recently, you'll know that I was in Thailand for just over 2 weeks. So today I thought we could go through a breakdown of everything that I spent on that trip in Thailand so that it really gives you guys an idea as to what you need to budget, what things are costing out there, and hopefully it can help a few people if you are planning a trip to Thailand anytime soon. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you go check out the Thailand vlogs. I had the best time on holiday. I will link all 3 of the videos down in the description so that you can check them out whenever you've got time. So for this video, I'm going to split it into several different categories to kind of give you an idea as to what we spent in different aspects of the trip. And just to say that these prices are all based off of 2 people. So for me and Stephen, obviously sharing all the expenses on this holiday. However, if you're just a solo traveler, then, obviously just divide by 2 aside from the hotels, because obviously that's just cost per room. But everything else, is easily divided by 2 so that you can figure out exactly what you would be paying just for yourself. I'll also just say I am going to be talking in Australian dollars, obviously because I live in Sydney. However, what I will do just for ease is I will pop up somewhere on the screen throughout the video different currency conversions so you can see in different currencies, and hopefully your currency will appear there so that you know exactly what it is in your currency without having to go do the conversions yourself. So before we go and get into everything, I actually just really quickly wanted to say that Stephen and I by no means are budget travelers. When we're away, we will eat, drink, do whatever we want and whatever we please to do. So sometimes it means our trips can be a little bit more expensive. We're not trying to do things very cheaply. We're just doing whatever we want to do, sort of not regardless of the cost, because obviously cost does matter, but we're not thinking like, oh, we won't do that activity because it's slightly too expensive. We're not those type of people. If there's something that we want to do, if there's a meal that we want to have, if there's an extra drink that we want to have, like we will just do that on holiday. So let's get started. Now, the first category that I'm going to go into is transportation, and this is going to include flights, ferries, speedboats, taxis, the works. Now, let's start firstly with the flights. Now, flights were kind of a little bit of a different situation this time because we actually flew from London to Phuket rather than Sydney to Phuket because we were back in the UK for Christmas. So our flights from London to Phuket, we flew with Turkish Airways, I can't remember which way around it is, but we flew with them. We paid $3,071, and that flight basically went from Heathrow. We stopped in Istanbul, and then we went from Istanbul to Phuket. Can't remember exactly how long it was, but the stopover in Istanbul wasn't too bad. I think our flight actually got slightly delayed, but it wasn't the end of the world. And actually, if you've ever been to Istanbul airport, so much to do there. It was massive. That's probably the biggest, I feel like that's the biggest airport I've ever been in, aside from like Singapore airport's obviously massive, but I feel like Singapore's quite spread out, whereas there was just so much to do in this Istanbul airport. And the other flight that we did was back to Australia. So we then flew from Phuket back to Australia. We flew with Jetstar. I've said it before, and we obviously didn't stay true to our word, but I said I would never fly with Jetstar again after we came home from Fiji and our flight was delayed. And let me tell you, we got to Phuket airport. If you've seen the vlogs, you'll have known my phone, basically, I dropped my phone in the sea, so my phone had stopped working, so I had no access to my emails. So I did not see the email from Jetstar that told us that our flight had been rescheduled, or not really rescheduled, that's a polite way that they've put it. Our flight was delayed, and the flight was delayed by about 7 hours, which is not what you want to hear when you've just spent the last of your time, like cash, to get to the airport to then find out that your flight's delayed by 7 hours. So that was a nightmare. It was an overnight flight already, so it basically meant we had to sleep in the airport. So like that was just not fun. And honestly, Jetstar are just useless. They're genuinely useless. And we've said again, we will not fly with Jetstar ever again. So we'll see if we stick to that this time around. But anyway, back to the purpose of what I'm actually meant to be talking about, which was the cost. And the cost for those flights was $2,516, which pains me to say, knowing that I spent 7 hours trying to sleep on an airport floor after just paying that much money up for that flight. And you get like no compensation here in Australia either if your flight is delayed. They give you a food voucher. The food voucher didn't even cover the cost of a meal for one person, so that was great. The next sort of transportation thing I've got is taxis. Now, taxis were much more expensive than I expected them to be. I actually say it would be one of the larger expenses of our trip when you consider that most of the journeys that we were doing were literally like 5 or 10 minutes, and they just like weren't well, they were walkable. It would have been like at least half-hour walks, but you know, obviously in the heat, you don't really want to be doing that. So the total we spent on taxis was 227 Australian dollars. Now that actually doesn't sound too bad overall when you think about the grand scheme of things, and we did do a trip to the airport and like back from the airport, included in that in Thailand. But I just thought it was like the short journeys. The long journeys weren't too bad, to be honest, but it was the short journeys where it's like I said, 5-10 minutes and you're spending quite a bit of money just on the taxi. But it is what it is. We didn't really have a choice, so that's what we paid. The next thing is the ferries / speedboats. Now we took 4 journeys in total. We did, sorry, I'm just looking at my little piece of paper with my notes. But we did the Phuket to PP, we did PP to Lanta, Lanta to Ao Nang, and Ao Nang to Phuket. I hope I'm pronouncing all of those correctly. I don't know if I am, but hopefully I am. So we did 4 speedboats. We did 4 speedboats / ferries, and in total those came to 243 Australian dollars. Now some of those were quite long and like long journeys. I think the longest we did was maybe 3 hours, and that one was on a ferry. Basically the speedboats tend to be cheaper. Sorry, no, that's the wrong way around. The speedboats tend to be more expensive and the ferries tend to be cheaper, but of course, and the ferries tend to be a longer journey. However, the ferries as a whole did tend to be like a more comfortable journey. Honestly, the speedboats were fine. I'd heard loads of people like slate the speedboats and say they're horrible, but they were completely fine, and I get so motion sick. But I was fine the whole way. We just kind of really based it on what had the better departure / arrival time, and if there was a huge difference in the cost of speedboat versus ferry for the amount of time that you have to spend on speedboat or ferry. The next category would be our hotels. So when it came to hotels, we actually pre-booked everything before, well, literally actually months before, to be honest with you. We booked everything about 5 months before our trip. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, I feel like I was told that Thailand accommodation was super cheap, and I personally didn't find it that cheap, to be honest with you. Now we didn't stay in any hostels, we stayed in only hotels, and we did stay in some very nice hotels. So those ones I do feel like, you know, the money that you're spending is worth what you're getting. However, I have heard of all of these people that get like these amazing 5 stars for like $30 a night, which was not the case for us. So we stayed at 5 different hotels throughout our time in Thailand. The first hotel that we stayed in Phuket was called the Yama Hotel. We actually really enjoyed this hotel. It was pretty good value for money. I think it cost us $251 for 2, yeah, that's right, 2 nights there. That's what we paid for that first accommodation. It had like, we had a good balcony, it had a really nice pool. It was kind of central, like really you had to get a taxi down to the main strip, but we weren't too far, so it wasn't too big of a deal. After Phuket, we travelled to Phi Phi, and on Phi Phi we stayed in a hotel called Phi Phi Anita. Now, to be honest with you, out of all of the accommodation that we stayed in, this is the only hotel that I probably wouldn't go, I say probably, I wouldn't go back to. Now, there was nothing inherently wrong with the hotel. It was just quite expensive, I personally feel, for what you got. So for the 4 nights that we spent there, it was $613, which, like, what's that, $150 a night basically. I don't know, it just wasn't the one. The pool was nice. Obviously Phi Phi is a party island, so you were quite close to all of the noise. That was fine, I kind of expected that, but it was the actual like room of the hotel like wasn't that nice. I don't even think I gave a room tour on the vlogs because it really like wasn't the one. So I probably wouldn't recommend, nor would I personally go back there, but it did its job. It was one thing I would actually say, the location was ideal because like I said, you were in the main area, but you weren't right on like the party side of things. So it was like a little bit more quiet than what I imagine some of the main hotels would be. After Phi Phi, we headed to Koh Lanta, and this is probably one of the, well, this was the most expensive hotel that we stayed in. So we were in Koh Lanta for 4 nights. The hotel that we stayed at was called Long Beach Chalet, and for 4 nights we paid $1,660. Now I know that that is expensive, but basically when we were looking at hotels on Koh Lanta, firstly I feel like there's sort of like more limited hotels there, but this hotel was just so nice in comparison to the other ones that were there. And there were 100%, there were cheaper ones we could have stayed in that was still nice, but we really just decided to splurge on this one and treat ourselves to stay somewhat nice. And I'm so happy that we did. We loved the little chalet. It's like all chalets, hence the name of the hotel. It was unbelievable. It was so good. It was quite quiet. This is where we actually saw a snake a few times as well in our little chalet, but I would absolutely 100% go back there. The food was good there, the drinks were good there, the pool was nice, the room was stunning. It was just like the perfect little like oasis, basically, is how I would describe it. From Atlanta, we headed over to Ao Nang and we stayed there for 3 nights. We stayed in the Blues Hotel Smart. Now this was an adult only hotel, and again, this hotel was lovely. 100% would go back and stay there again. It had this like amazing rooftop pool with like lovely views. It was great. And then the bedroom was just like really, really nice as well. The cost for this hotel was $625. Finally, our last stop was heading back to Phuket. So once we were back in Phuket, we stayed in the Wyndham Grand, which is honestly probably one of the nicest hotels that I have ever stayed in. So with this hotel, technically we only needed to stay for 1 night. However, because our flight back to Sydney was so late on in the day, it was better just to pay for 2 nights. So we got the use of the room all day, and you're not just like, I hate that awkward day where you've got to check out and you're kind of just like with your luggage and you don't really want to do anything because you don't have a room, you don't have a shower, like all things like that. So we did decide to pay for 2 nights rather than just the 1. And in total, that hotel cost us $600. So again, it was a bit on the pricey side, but honestly, I do feel like it was worth every penny. Like we had the best time there. We had our own private pool. Like it was just really luxury and like a really good way to end the trip. So total spend for hotels was $3,749. And that works out to be basically around $250 per day. So yes, the accommodation was definitely more expensive than I had thought it was going to be, but again, we did stay in nicer places and we just weren't really prepared to stay in any hostels. So next, going on to food and drinks, and I've tried to kind of split this into a few different categories. So we've got the main thing, which is like food, which I guess is like going out to eat. Now, obviously some of those meals may have included drinks with them, but I've just kind of, obviously I didn't go through and itemize the bills, so I've just lumbered that all into one category. Then we'll go on to like snacks and like, I call them room beers, but basically like beers, well, I don't even drink beer. Drinks that we got from the shop to drink in the hotel and things like that. That's all kind of in one category because that's usually just like the same 7-Eleven bills. And then the final category is just alcohol. So places where we went out and we just solely had drinks, like nights out and things like that. So I'll break them down into those 3 categories. So starting out with the main category, so food, so eating out. Now we ate out, breakfast was included actually for most of our hotels. So we didn't have to pay for breakfast for the most part. Then for lunch and dinner, we went out to eat every single day. And again, like I said earlier, we would eat whatever we want, drink whatever we want, like just whatever we fancied, we would have. So in total for food, we spent $588, which I don't really think is too bad. So if you divide that by 15 days that we were there, I think it was actually technically like 16 days, 15 nights, but let's just call it 15 days. It would work out to be about $39 per day for 2 people. So like $20 a day for 2 people for food. Now I think that's personally pretty good, like very, very good. The food was actually relatively cheap, to be honest. When you go to the more sort of like resorty places, it does get a bit more expensive, but we tried to eat as local, I guess, as possible. Like we didn't go to any sort of like fancy restaurants or resorts or anything like that. We just ate in like the regular places that were on the streets. So going on to room beers and snacks, we got to try quite a good amount of snacks there, and we had a fair few room beers, and in total that came to $132, which again I would say is actually like very, very cheap for the amount of time that we were there. The final category is alcohol, and to be honest with you, we probably drank less than what we would usually drink, because honestly sometimes I felt like the drinks were definitely more expensive than I thought that they were going to be, and I felt that there had been a few occasions where like we had gone out and we had had a few drinks and it really like wasn't hitting us at all. Like it had like no real effects on us. And I also noticed that a lot of the drinks had just so much sugar in them that they make you feel a bit like icky. And because I don't like beer, my choices were really just sweet cocktails or like spirits. So I didn't really have like a good in-between kind of drink. So we didn't drink tons, but we did end up spending $213 on alcohol. And again, like I said before, some of our alcohol budget would actually be included in the food one, like anything that we had with meals, but this is just like solely going out and going to bars. So if you were to total up those past 3 categories that I just went through, it means that in total for 15 days, we spent $933, which again, I feel like is pretty cheap. Like, let me just work that out. So divide that by 15, would work out to be $62 per day between 2 people, so $30 each per day, which again, I think that's an absolute steal. Plus, I'm now a converted Thai food lover. Every single thing we ate there, unbelievable, literally unbelievable. Like, I love Thai food so much, it's so good. So moving on to activities. Now, I don't know whether I got ripped off for some of these, because to be honest with you, for most of the activities we ended up booking them online, like either through, like, I don't know how you pronounce it, Viagogo, or what's the other one? Viator, like, you know, that those sort of travel sites. So we pretty much booked all of our activities through those. So maybe cheaper if you go up and speak to like the guys in the streets trying to sell them, not sure, but we just booked everything through those. So the first activity that we went to go do was the elephant sanctuary. We went to the Green Elephant Sanctuary in Phuket, and honestly it was an unbelievable day. It was so good. It was so lovely to get so up close to the animals, and that cost us, that was kind of like a half day activity type thing. That cost us $216 for both of us, which is, I feel like all of the activities may be a little bit more on the expensive side, but all absolutely worthwhile doing, and I would do all of them again in a heartbeat. Like, I would say they were all worth what we paid for them. The second activity that we went to do was the PP Islands tour. So we got a speedboat for this one. That cost us 200 Aussie dollars for the both of us. Again, it's $100 each, which again, fully worth everything we spent. That included all of our soft drinks, and it also actually included lunch as well, so even better value for money. The next thing that we did in PP was hike up to the viewpoint. Now, this is just a really small fee, but it does cost you, it worked out to be $4 for the two of us, so $2 each. Like, it really isn't very much, but word of warning, full of mosquitoes. The viewpoint is lovely, but full of mosquitoes and so crowded. Don't necessarily think I would go back again if I was ever to be in PP again. After that, when we were in Koh Lanta, this is kind of where we did quite a lot of activities actually. We decided to do a private Muay Thai class. It was really good. If you were brand new to Muay Thai, I would definitely say do a private class over the group classes, because you obviously get that one-on-one time, and they can go at the pace that like you're at rather than trying to match the other people around you. This class ended up being $54 for both of us. We both did private lessons, so we both had our own instructor. So that's $54 for both of us, which I thought was an absolute steal. We were hoping to try get another Muay Thai class in at some stage, but we just kind of ran out of time, and our bodies were so sore because we were running quite a bit as well on holiday too. So session was so good. After that, we did one more boat trip when we were in Koh Lanta. We did the 4 Islands tour, which everybody raved about, and honestly we did have a really, really good time there. It was 100 Aussie dollars for both of us, so 50 bucks each, and we, as the name says, traveled to 4 different islands. We did some snorkeling. Again, this included our lunch, and it also included some soft drinks. They were a little bit stingy on the soft drinks for this one, and we actually got a long tail boat there, and that was hectic. I don't think I would recommend getting on a long tail boat for like long journeys. I feel like speedboat all the way, but that tour was still so much fun, and I would recommend that. It is quite not a lengthy tour, like it's a whole day tour, which is what you'd expect from a boat tour, but in the sense that the initial drive from Lanta to the first island is like over an hour, so it is quite a long time. I will pre-warn you by saying that. And the final activity that we did was a Thai cooking class. Now, this I actually personally made a mistake on. There were quite a few options for cooking classes, and when I went to go book them, like I said, I booked this online. I saw the price in dollars, so I paid for it. Then I checked my bank account and I was like, that is not the same price that I paid. And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, when I'd gone onto the website, it had changed my currency from Australian dollars to US dollars. So what I thought I was paying was actually not what I was paying at all. So the cooking class ended up being $170, which is expensive. That's probably more than what I would have wanted to pay. However, when we actually got to the cooking class, it was incredible. We made 4 dishes. We were there for about 4 hours. It was a long evening, I will give it that. It was a long shift to put in, but it was organized so well. The food that we got to eat was really, really good. Like, I would highly recommend it. And I don't know, there's just something about learning about cultures and learning how to cook their food. I really love trying to immerse myself as much as I possibly can in the places that I am going to. So that is the end of all of the activities that we did. So that brings, in fact, actually there was one more activity we did, which was kayaking, but I think that was only like 200 baht, so I haven't really included that on this list, but that was the only other thing that we did. So that brings all of our activities to $744. So that is on the higher side, but I just feel like when you're going to these places, you need to experience as much as you can. You need to see as much as you can, and it's just worth spending your money on these things, in my opinion. So the final category that I've got, I've called this shopping / beauty, but it's really kind of like miscellaneous. This is basically like anything that we bought from the little stalls. Like we both got some running shorts and just like little random bits and pieces like that. And then we actually also just went to like a beauty place. So Stephen got a massage and I got my nails done. The total that we spent on shopping and getting those little massages and things like that was $164. That brings us to the end of all of the different categories. Now for the big reveal. Now the one thing I always find when I film these videos is it's always eye-opening when you actually total up everything that you've spent, because I would never used to do this. And like I said, when we're away, we don't really think about the money. We just do whatever we want to do there. So it's always a little bit eye-opening when you see this. So anyway, total figure including flight, accommodation and everything we spent in Thailand was $11,647. So divide that by 2 and that's what we spent per person on this trip. Honestly, I feel like it was a really good deal overall. Like for over 2 weeks being there, eating what we want, doing what we want, drinking whatever we fancied, and including our flights and accommodation, like I do think that's pretty good. If you guys have any questions about anything that I spoke about in this video or any questions about Thailand in general, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. I'll make sure that I get around to answering them. And if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. See you next week.